Hey, everybody. It's Thursday and it's time to get paid. Hey, Deb, how are you? Looks beautiful
I'm
there.
good.
A nice
Yeah, I'm a
crisp
little.
fall morning.
Yeah, it's a little crisper than I was hoping, but I had to evacuate my apartment due to some painting that's being done. So I came out in the back here, and it is lovely, but it is a little crisp out. It's definitely fall. Good to see
Well,
you.
it's good to see you. This weather has been crazy, the East Coast. So I'm glad to see the sunshine. So
I know,
good.
me too. Yeah, it has been quite a rainy week. So yeah, good to see you. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy
So
to be here.
I'm really excited about this topic because it's complicated and a lot of people have been talking about it and trying to figure it out. Um, you know, the future workplace. How do we come back to the office? What does remote working look like? But we always talk about the people because it's about the people. How do those decisions affect the people who work for you or even you as a leader? And so
Mhm.
today, we're going to talk about who gets lost in this future workplace when you have the choice to either go into the office or work remotely. Who gets lost,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And to your point, I mean, I think it's not just about the employees themselves, but everybody plays a part in it. So I think it's important that we, explore kind of all sides. So why don't you get started with sort of what's the impact? Who are the primary folks who maybe have been even getting lost before we went remote, and now kind of what's the impact of hybrid and remote work on them?
So, in corporate America, we've been talking about this since I think May 27th of 2020. Um, in in the corporate environment, who's advancing, who has the support, who's being acknowledged. And, we realized that women, not as much as white men, people of color, um, people in workplaces where they don't really have the opportunity because they have to they're single moms or they have the sole responsibility of their house. They can't do as much because they have that responsibility. And so as we have examined that, we realize that if you are in those groups, you have to do a little extra. Unfortunately, you have to bring a little extra to get on even playing field. So what does that mean if you're in a remote situation and you can't go into the office once the office opens? What do you need to do to be seen, right? And so you don't continue to get lost even further. And so,
Yes.
some of the things I talk about because I'm in now a hybrid situation, and there are things you need to consider about a hybrid situation. If you're going into the office or if you have meetings, and some of them are virtual and some of them are in person, build in that time so that you're prepared when you get there. Um, if you are on camera, make sure that your camera is on. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is for me when I'm on a virtual call or a virtual meeting and there are people who still have their cameras off and are just talking. So you're not being noticed. People aren't really thinking about you because actually the way most of those virtual meetings go, if you have your camera on, you're on the screen.
Right.
You don't, you're gathered and you just see your initial. Don't
Yep.
let
and
that
and let
be
me
you.
Yeah, and let me add in too, people worry about kind of what's in my background. Like, I have in my back, you can put backgrounds there, right? So you don't have to worry
Yeah,
so much about your background. I agree with you. Definitely should be on camera.
definitely should be on camera. You can blur your background, or even now, I know when we first started doing this, I had an actual green screen. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of companies, whether it's Google Meets or Zoom, Teams, they have built in this green
Yep.
screen capacity to make it so you can make your background anything. So don't let that be get
A
in the
deterrent,
way of
yeah.
you getting noticed. Speak up when the opportunity comes. Raise your hand. Let them hear your voice repeatedly, and don't just do it to be heard. Make sure that you're a part of the conversation. And then if you can't go into the office, maybe a lot of offices are leaving it up to your discretion, just saying we're going to be open, and we would like people to be there 2 to 3 days a week. If you work for a company like that and you can't be there, every week, make sure that you're communicating with your manager when you're going to be there, so that they know you're going to be there. And a lot are also using like Officely and other software for you to sign up to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Always check and see who's going to be in the office, and sign up when your team is there. You're building a relationship. Make sure that you take some time to get into that space. Be safe, wear a mask, but use time wisely so that your office knows the contribution that you are making to the business. I
Yes,
think, and,
I
and
agree.
also because so much of what happens to be noticed and to grow in your position is about relationships. So make sure that you are using the tools you have to continue to build those relationships.
And you bring up a good point too, particularly if you happen to have started your job during the pandemic, because a lot of
Right.
people have changed jobs since the pandemic.
That's
So
right.
there's so many people have said to me, I've never met my colleagues before, and I'm just starting to meet them now. So that relationship building, especially in that situation, becomes really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely. And look for other opportunities to network, right? There are
Yeah.
groups in your professional groups who are networking virtually and also starting to network in person. So use your
Right.
time wisely. I'm not saying just be out wild and loose, but be strategic about it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the employee. So Deb, what about the employer? What can they do?
Well, one of the things that I think leaders and employers overall, company leadership has to think about is things just aren't going to go back to 2019. Like things have shifted, the paradigm has shifted. So, what you can't do is what you've always done. And even if you're back in the office, even if you're full time back in the office, like there's some offices, right, where everybody's vaccinated, people are back in the office, but there are still people that are working maybe hybrid some of the time, where people are kind of doing what they can to come in sometimes. And you have to really think about what has changed and how do we continue to make sure we have an inclusive culture and an inclusive workplace if not everybody is here at the same time. So that means you have to think about what it is that creates inclusivity for people who aren't there, and making that a part of the regular process and not like a forgotten thing. Because I remember when I was in the office in my last role, we were all in the office, and there were a couple of people that didn't live in New York, so they would call into a conference line on for a meeting, and they would never say anything. And I remember them saying like they were doing other work
Oh,
because everyone forgot that they were there, and they
wow.
started to like lose interest. And so it becomes thinking about, okay, how do I do meetings now with people who are here and not here? How do I do things with my team? How do I do team building with people who are here and not here? Not just how did I do team building in 2019, because it doesn't work. And also the access piece, yes, people should be getting to the office when they can. But if somebody's totally remote and let's say they don't even live near an office, how does the leader create opportunities for that person to have a touch base or to make sure they can drop in and talk casually? Because there are ways to do that if you think them through and plan them. But if you just think you're going to go back to the old ways, I think the people that you've spoken about are going to continue to be left out, and probably even further left out than prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, and I also think, in addition to women and people of color, um, I'm noticing a lot of junior level employees, and they just graduated from college and they've come into this workplace that is remote, and they haven't had the experience of being around people to create the right boundaries or to understand what you can do, what you can't do. And I don't think they're getting lost, but what's happening is that their morale, they're used to that more hands-on helicopter um, leadership, for lack of a better term. Their teachers checked in on them, their parents checked in on them. And when you're virtual, it's not the same. And so I'm speaking to them directly that this is the time to strategically start to build what you need for your career. So build those relationships and find those opportunities to be in person so that you can start to create your own agency. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and also to look for mentors, because one of the things that will be missing is that actual demonstration of how to comport oneself in the workplace, because eventually, hopefully this is going to pass and people will be going back to offices on a more regular basis. And to your point, if this is your first job and you're not in an office and you're not understanding kind of how offices operate, and all offices have some type of politics, whether you like it or not,
Right.
how to kind of make your way, how to kind of get connected. If you're virtual, you need to find a mentor and somebody who can start you on that journey before you go back into an office. I agree.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we've discussed it. Who gets lost in the future workplace? It's really not much different than the regular workplace, only we have to handle it differently. So, Deb, what's the bottom line?
The bottom line is it's not 2019 and we're never going back. Things have shifted. The paradigm has changed. We have to look at it with fresh eyes. And, it's incumbent upon both groups of people. It's incumbent upon employees to do all those things that you talked about in terms of making themselves heard and seen and networked and part of the team. But it's also really important for leadership to think about what has changed and how do you continue to create an inclusive team if people aren't all together all the time.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So, as we leave you this week, I do have an announcement. So we talk about networking and we talk about business development and career development here. And so I am really proud and excited because I founded an organization called Women of Color in Retail, and it's near and dear to my heart as someone who spent most of their career or still in the retail, fashion, branding industries, and as someone who has had an incredible career and has grown. What I've also seen is that my sisters don't all get the same opportunities, and so this is near and dear to my heart. I have partnered with some incredible women. Christiane Pendarvis, Karen Cho, Janice Drake, Bethany Klin, and Christina Otera are on my board of directors, and we are launching. We've become 501c3, and our big launch is next week, November 4th, in New York City, in Tribeca. And so the information is all over LinkedIn. And if you want more information, just reach out to me. But I am so excited. I can't tell you, this is a real opportunity to change an industry,
That's
right?
fantastic.
And I'm just super excited about that. So,
Yay!
yeah, I mean, Deb, you've been around me for a long time.
Yes.
I speak out. I'm an advocate, and I have this opportunity now to do it on even a bigger stage. And so I'm looking forward to the change that we're going to make in this industry for good. And be a part of it. Be a part of it. Reach out to me. So, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us every week. We look forward to these 15 minutes with you, and we will see you next week when we will talk about, what are we talking about, Deb? The culture. Now I forget.
Does the workplace make the culture? You
Yes.
know, we're talking this whole thing about the future of work and people not being here or on site all the time. Like, and sometimes people are saying, well, if we're not all together all the time, we lose the culture. But does the workplace make the culture? I guess we're going to find out.
That's right. Great question. And we look forward to that discussion next week. See you next Thursday, 11 o'clock. Take care.
Bye-bye.
And get paid.
Get paid.